Good morning and welcome to Breaking Points. We normally have bad news throughout the entire show, but we actually have good news to start this one, right?
That's right. We can put this up on the screen. If you want to try Breaking Points for a month, the premium edition of Breaking Points for a month, we're running an amazing special right now. The promo code is BPFree. Go over to breakingpoints.com. The monthly subscriptions are back, so huge news in and of itself, but also if you just want to try it for a month, the promo code is BPFree. So that's exciting, Ryan.
Yeah, people always ask me, what do you get if you subscribe to the show? Because I can find it on Spotify, I can find it on the podcast, the YouTube. Mm-hmm. We email it out at around 11. We're supposed to get it to you by 11 every morning, 11 Eastern every morning. And it's just a couple links of the full show. No ads unless YouTube is jamming ads that day into the link. But we have a Spotify link. And then you can just watch the whole thing. You can just set it, forget it, listen while you're driving, while you're washing dishes, while you're making your rounds.
Right. Whatever
you're doing. And then it just comes. People had complained that we got rid of the monthly subscription because $100 at once that's a chunk.
Monthly is great.
So now you can get Breaking Points on layaway, basically.
Monthly subscription, fantastic. Also fantastic way to try the show, premium edition of the show for a month. You get the second half of our Friday shows. That's another big thing that you get. And, we do save a lot of the good stuff for the second half of the Friday shows. Not just the fun stuff, but I think some of our more substantive conversations
I'm picking up material right now that I'm going to save for the...
You got to get it.
I had a good response there. I'm saving it for the Friday show.
And it's free this week. This month,
right.
If you use promo code BPFree. So stick around for that. Also, you get the AMA, Ask Me Anything Lives and all that fun stuff. So go ahead, breakingpoints.com if you want to try it out. Ryan, we have a big show to start with today. Elon Musk is now on a rampage against the administration. He just left. We have updates out of Gaza. We have Chuck Schumer with an incredible video that looks like...
Urging an attack on Iran, basically.
About Taco Trump. Taco Trump, so stick around for that. We have a little exclusive from the State Department this morning pertaining to a controversy over one of their employees. So we're going to do that and talk about updates from Ukraine. Joy Reid is weighing in more on why she left MSNBC. So we have some video of her. And Juan David Rojas from Compact joins us to talk about Trump's, the conflicting... What do we say? The conflicting
contradictions
factions?
Inherent?
Yeah, with the factions in Trump world.
Yeah.
That some people seem to want a new policy in Latin America. Other people seem to be clinging to the Cold War mentality. No surprise there. But Juan David has been covering all of it, and he's going to join us to talk about that.
Yes, indeed.
All right, let's dive in, Ryan, with Elon Musk. Playbook actually counted that Elon Musk posted 13 times over the course of 6 hours yesterday, rampaging against Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, which we can now abbreviate helpfully as BBB, which is why BBB is on the screen if you're watching this. So let's put...
Are they mimicking Build Back Better? Is that what they were trying to do there?
Or the Better Business Bureau. There's too many triple Bs. Yeah.
That's where our bond rating is going if you pass this bill.
If we're lucky.
Yeah.
So we can put this up on the screen. Elon's tweet here. I guess we have to call it a post on X.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
He goes,
call it a tweet.
He goes, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. He adds, it will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit to $2.5 trillion and burden American citizens with crushingly unsustainable debt. Ryan, there is a lot to talk about here. I just want to start by saying the central premise of Republicans pushing the big, beautiful bill is that $2.5 trillion number is wrong, that the Congressional Budget Office is underestimating the growth that'll come as part of this bill. So Elon Musk is not just pushing back on the bill, he is now adopting the counter narrative. And he's not the only one. People like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul are as well. But this is a man who is a week out of his special government employee status at the White House. And he sounds a whole lot like Rand Paul. And again, Elon Musk was not going anywhere near significant criticisms just a week ago.
I'm on the Musk side here because there's two types of quote unquote growth that people might be referring to. One is asset inflation, which is basically the stock market goes up and we get a housing bubble. And certainly the more debt we circulate, and the more, like, let's say you start having Bitcoin backup treasuries, yes, you can get a run up then in asset prices. That's not economic growth though, because the way to get economic growth, either expand productivity or you invest in things that yield back actual returns for people in the real economy. And cutting taxes for the rich doesn't do that, because unlike, Elon Musk might be the exception among billionaires because apparently he doesn't spend a whole lot of money. He doesn't have like 15 different houses.
He has 15 different children probably.
Well, that's true. He probably spends on all of his different children the amount that a normal billionaire spends on their houses. He also flies everywhere. It's not like he's living a cheap life.
Yeah, he's not a monk.
The point is, he's so rich, and these other rich people are so rich that giving them more money doesn't mean they spend more. If you give a normal person a little extra money,
if you give a mouse a cookie,
they're going to spend it. Yes, yeah. I mean, actually, if you give a mouse a cookie, is sort of the explanation for how this works. But if you give a regular person money, they're going to spend it because there's things that they want that they can't have because they don't have enough money. If you give a billionaire another $50,000, they don't even notice for the most part.
Right.
You might see this uptick in the stock market. So that's why I think the higher estimate is probably more accurate. Now, if I want to nitpick him, is there pork in this bill? Pork is where you're like, hey, this community center or this bridge in this district in Kentucky is going to get $75 million. Is there some of that in there?
So that is definitely a nitpick because no,
what they're going to do is the Trump administration will then do it for them rather than put it in the bill.
Yeah, and that's sort of similar to the Biden infrastructure bill, but that's actually part of the problem that some people like Elon Musk and Rand Paul have with it, is that it hasn't fully dismantled. So Republicans are chalking this up to Elon Musk being mad that it gets rid of some of the EV, like Biden's EV support package. And
it's crazy. Like, who spends hundreds of millions of dollars and gets, he got all his investigations knocked away, but yeah, he's getting absolutely routed when it comes to the government benefits that he was getting.
I just don't know how important that is to him. It's important to Tesla, but how important is Tesla? How important is Tesla in his portfolio?
His leverage, he is highly leveraged.
Right.
His collateral is Tesla stock.
Yeah.
So if that collapses, then the bankers start calling. And the bankers, he does not have the kind of bankers that you want calling. These are people who are like, hey, why don't we meet in the consulate in Istanbul, the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, to talk about, you're a little bit overdue on your latest payment. And then you leave in a bucket. So
he's actually, by complaining about pork, asking for pork for Elon. If that's his definition of pork, which is, it's something that's inserted into the bill to please the very particular or niche interest of the donor class. It's not really the technical definition of pork, but some people are upset that there haven't been, this was an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, there isn't enough dismantling of the Biden agenda in this bill. But that's, of course, what's upsetting to Elon. And this is where Trump right now is between a rock and a hard place, because moderates say the bill is already cutting too much. And then people like Rand Paul and Ron Johnson say the bill is not cutting enough. And that includes now, I suppose, Elon Musk. So let's go ahead and roll A3. This is Rand Paul on Fox Business yesterday.
In a separate post, Trump said there's a false narrative about spending in this bill. He said it is, quote, single biggest spending cut in history by far. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul joins me now. Mr. Senator, I know you want more spending cuts included in the bill. Can you tell us what specifically you'd want to cut?
Yeah, it's even more than that. The biggest objection I have to the bill is adding $5 trillion to the debt ceiling. I'm actually very supportive of the tax cuts. I don't accept the CBO notion that the tax cuts will lead to deficits. The reason I believe there'll be more deficits is they're raising the debt ceiling $5 trillion. We know that this year, most of the Republicans, not me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels in March. So we're going to go through September of this year, and the deficit for this year is going to be over $2 trillion. If you're borrowing $5 trillion, that makes me think you're going to add over $2 trillion, maybe $2.8 trillion next year. So it doesn't show me that you've turned around. If you look at the spending cuts, it's complicated because it's 1.5 trillion. It sounds like this enormous number, but it's over 10 years. So it's 150 billion a year. They're also increasing spending for the military and for the border, 300 billion. That's actually more than all the DOGE cuts that we've found so far. So something doesn't really add up here. And I can't be on record as being one who supports increasing the debt by 5 trillion. I think that's irresponsible. The bond markets are already starting to show that they're skittish over this. Yeah. We got interest rates of over 5% on the 10-year bond. There are real problems we face as a country, and we can't just blithely go on the way we have in the past.
So Ron Johnson also specifically said that he's very concerned about how the bill will affect the bond markets, which is a completely reasonable concern. Interesting.
Could he be a no?
Yeah, right now he's a no. And they say they only need 4 of them. That's the line that you keep hearing from Rand Paul and others in the Senate. They only need to band together 4 people, and that could mean an unusual marriage between Susan Collins. So
any of these Utah liberals gonna?
We'll see. But you might not even need that because if you combine the fiscal hawks with the moderates, you're already easily at 4. So you'd need Collins to get the 4, right? Collins will be wobbly on because of Medicaid. That's,
oh my God!
She's already indicated.
Isn't it cuts LIHEAP too?
There's a lot.
So you're asking Maine's senator to cut energy assistance, oil assistance, for working people in winter in Maine.
Then also, this is where it gets even worse for Republicans. They have to
also Alaska. It gets cold there, too.
Yeah, also Alaska. They then have to kick this back over to the House to approve the changes. And everybody remembers that this only went over to the Senate because Mike Johnson cut a deal with some of the fiscal hawks in the House to basically rubber stamp it and say we trust the president to work with the Senate to get a better deal, but we don't like this bill. We're not voting for this bill. We're voting basically to send it over to the Senate and to get the ball rolling. They want to have this bill done. Donald Trump continues to push to have this bill done by a month from today, July 4th. They want the bill to be signed and enacted by the 4th of July.
Yeah, try to get it done fast.
Right. Otherwise, you start losing to the recess, and you're into the fall, and then you're into midterms. So it sounds ridiculous because we're only a few months into the presidency, but it comes up midterms come up really fast, especially because Congress gets so much time off.
And so the House hawks, they want the bill to add spending cuts in the Senate.
Right.
Whereas in order to get the senators that are wobbly, to get Rand Paul, you'd have to do more cuts, like the hawks in the House want. But to get Murkowski and Collins, you'd have to do fewer cuts.
Right. Yeah.
And is the Pentagon just, you can't, like, hey, we're doing $1 trillion for the Pentagon, and that's all there is. Like, there's nobody can come in and be like, hey guys, what if we didn't like massively increase the Pentagon budget?
So this is where Elon Musk, while he's siding with Rand Paul here, you also heard Rand Paul throw a little bit, very subtle dig at Doge, saying that the spending is higher than the Doge cuts. And that's because a lot of Republicans, in order to get this bill passed, which, by the way, is, as we've talked about, a really critical element of the tariff agenda. So they believe that the tariff agenda, this is the sort of necessary supplement to it that creates an industrial policy for onshoring. We could debate whether or not that's the case, but it has things like 100% write-offs, retroactive to January 20th for factory building, manufacturing building, all that kind of stuff. I think the corporate tax rate going from 21 to 15 is industrial policy. So they feel like this is an absolutely essential part of the tariff agenda. All of that was predicated on the idea that Doge was going to find so many cuts in the government that they could basically do whatever they wanted to with this bill.
This is where I start to worry about your people.
My people.
Yeah. That anybody took seriously the claim from Elon Musk that he was going to cut $1 trillion, and at one point he said it was going to be $2 trillion, makes me worry about them. Makes me, for viewers and for regular people whose media diet has been telling them that there's waste, fraud, and abuse shot through the federal government their entire lives, I don't blame those people who believed that this was going to be possible. I don't even blame Elon Musk. He's just some drug-addled like tech guy who just like most tech people like doesn't know anything outside of like this very narrow area but thinks they're experts everywhere. That's just his personality type. So I don't even blame him. But the people who've spent 10 decades in Washington thinking that Elon Musk was going to come in and identify trillions of dollars in like painless waste, fraud, and abuse, that makes me worry about them if they were not just cynically using him. Steve Bannon, friend of the show, was saying from the very beginning, this is a fraud. And now he's
Because they wouldn't go to the Pentagon.
Right, and now he's been saying, look, all of these people in Washington, these Republicans in Washington, didn't want to make the painful cuts, and so they just put their faith in Elon Musk that he was going to find this $1 trillion. He didn't find it. He was never going to find it, and so he marched them into this place where now they've got all the tax cuts ready to go and the Pentagon spending, but they don't have the cuts.
Right.
The cuts were never there.
Right.
Because they weren't willing to go after power centers. Like Medicaid and Medicare fraud is on the provider side. It's the private equity owned doctors. It's the straight up fraudulent. Just put bars around Miami. Don't let anybody leave until you find every Medicare fraudster.
Generally a good idea.
Like, yes, I mean, ask Rick Scott, Medicare fraudster, who's a senator from Florida. Like, ask him, like, hey, how'd you do that? And he could tell you in like 2 minutes, oh, it's really easy. You just claim that you did services that you didn't do, and you send that to the federal government. The federal government, with no questions asked, sends you money. And we're like, oh, well, we have AI now that could maybe detect that stuff. Like maybe you have to send an actual photo of, oh, you say you sell wheelchairs? You say you sell scooters? Send us a picture of the scooter. And we're going to reverse Google search image of that thing. Make sure you didn't just pull it off the web.
Yeah.
You can stop this stuff. It's not that difficult. But what's difficult is doing it politically because these are white-collar criminals who've bought off the system and have gotten themselves elected into the system.
Well,
so that's why you weren't going to find the $1 trillion.
It's partially a matter of semantics, too, because when they say things like widespread fraud and abuse, I actually agree with that. But so what are they looking at right now? Like 160 billion in cuts from Doge, but we can't verify
that's the top line nonsense. The way to actually calculate what they really saved would be how much is Congress, quote unquote, rescinding.
Right.
That's money that was spent, but then because you found the fraud and abuse, Congress can just take it back.
Right.
And that's $9 billion.
That's insane.
2 of that is NPR and PBS.
Yeah.
Which you don't need Doge to like defund NPR and PBS. That's an ideological thing that they can just do. Yeah. So that's 7. And a bunch of that is like leases and just stuff that, and God help us if any of that actually saves us money. Like this is probably stuff that you cut that $7 billion, it's going to end up costing the federal government more money down the road. But okay, fine, $7 billion. He found $7 billion. How do we know that none of it was fraud? Because have you seen a single headline about Doge referring a fraudster to the Department of Justice?
It's a lot of what's
Would that not be just leading everywhere?
Well, on there.
We got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Definitely. Okay, so this is what I mean, semantics, the waste question. Yeah, I mean, but if you're saying widespread to the tune of $2 trillion, which is what he projected, what you end up finding, and let me say, plenty of waste at the Pentagon that they could have gone after. So no, I do think there's
like, why
widespread.
Are we doing he could have been like, hey guys, why are we building another nuclear triad? Like we don't need it. Like they're talking about spending $1 trillion on a new batch of nuclear weapons. You could be like, hey, number 1 on the agenda, let's just not do this.
Yeah.
And make people argue why you should do it. Be like, actually, all right, we heard the arguments. We have enough nuclear weapons that we can kill everyone on the planet 175 times over. We're good. It's $1 trillion saved. That would actually, but guess what? That would mean special interests who are involved in that nuclear program would have to take a haircut, and they don't want to do that.
So that is to say, the question of how widespread it is versus the just amount of money that we spend on Medicaid, for example, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, it just pales, and the Pentagon budget too, although you could actually just delete the Pentagon. You could get rid of the entire defense budget and it would not make a dent in the deficit, which sounds crazy, or in the debt, I should say, which sounds crazy, but it's true. at the Manhattan Institute, they've run the numbers on that. So it's just like the fiscal hawks there have run the numbers on that. It's really, really.
It would get your lines closer, which is what the market really cares about.
Yeah, it would be. It would be helpful for that type of thing.
It doesn't close everything because you got a $30 trillion debt right now, roughly.
It's still pale. Like actually, defense spending pales in comparison to how much money, the expenditures, annual expenditures on Medicaid, Medicare, and those things.
But so, if you took $1 trillion out, then that $30 trillion debt starts to shrink. However, it doesn't,
the
because
deficit does.
Then it is the American military that makes the dollar the reserve currency.
Right.
So the whole thing collapses without the military.
This is so much fun.
But maybe you don't need $1 trillion one.
But that's what gives people like Ron Johnson pause. And this is Ron Johnson from the Tea Party wave, by the way, who is talking about how now is not the time to be cutting taxes. And he specifically has looked at said to look at the bond markets. He was just on Tucker Carlson's show actually making this case, making basically an extended case against the BBB. So the Trump administration has a month to somehow get these dug-in factions to the same place. And Rand Paul has said that he is ready to compromise, that he understands he's going to have to compromise. If you are Mike Johnson and you have been giving Elon Musk cover for months, you are just beside yourself and furious about this right now because he didn't find the cuts that he was supposed to find. And now he has the audacity to criticize your bill because after—
It's rich. It's rich.
It is. At the same time, you also look at someone like Mike Johnson and you say, you have the audacity to talk about government spending and then put a bill like this on the table. So I don't know where they go. They're desperate, which means that they'll be willing to make significant compromises. I don't know that they even have a good idea of what some of those compromises might look like going forward, and that's pretty important for the way that they see the entire economy. The American economy is sort of hanging on whether or not they're able to get some version of this passed. We will see, Ryan, how that ends up.
No.
We will continue to follow the story. Ryan, let's move on to Gaza.
What's the next thing to watch on that? And then we'll go to...
So John Thune is meeting with Donald Trump at the White House today, and they're huddling on policy and particularly tax policy. So we'll see what comes out of that. It's going to be daily negotiations. I actually think Trump has had sort of a lighter schedule the last couple of days because he's working the phones and taking meetings to try to get people into the same page, or onto the same page on this, which it's just sort of at this point unfathomable what you can do to build that bridge, but they have a month to try.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.